At this time, I'd like to invite our sponsor, Dan Pienta, who's the market president at Northern Trust, to join me on stage to introduce our opening plenary speaker. Let's thank Dan and Northern Trust for sponsoring the conference. Dan?
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to do this the old-fashioned way and avoid the AV equipment. So it's my pleasure to introduce Ray Odom this morning. Ray is a Senior Vice President and Director of Wealth Transfer Services for the Northern Trust Company. In this role, he works closely with our regional offices, teams, and wealth strategists across the country to help affluent clients quantify wealth consumption, minimize wealth confiscation, and optimize wealth contribution. Ray has been with Northern Trust since 1980 and has served in a variety of roles within our fiduciary business. He has also been in private practice as an estate planning attorney. He's a certified financial planner and a JD from the Ohio State University. It's not easy for a Wolverine to say. Ray is certified to practice both in Illinois and before the U.S. Tax Court. He has volunteered on a number of nonprofit boards in greater Chicagoland and is a member of the Chicago Estate Planning Council. Please join me in welcoming Ray Odom.
Trying to get as close as possible to everybody here. There. The idea is to try to remove all the barriers between me and you. All right, let's see if that works. Yeah, I'd really like to be down there, but they told me if I go down on the ground, they can't see me. So there it is. What's manners got to do with it? I mean, really, what's manners got to do with it? And the truth is, I was a little nervous about that topic, so when Lori, I told her, look, don't give the PowerPoint out ahead of time, because they'll know, and then, you know, they'll not be able to come. And who wants to come at 7:30, 8 o'clock? But I panicked, said, Lori, go ahead and give it, so that they don't think that I'm going to have a conversation about etiquette. I mean, who would show up at 8 o'clock to hear about be nice to your clients, say please and thank you to your donors? I mean, who would do that? Well, you would. It's not about the formalities of etiquette that I want to talk to you about. I actually want to do the opposite. I don't want to talk about formalities. I want to talk about the realities. The realities. And I hope to boldly go where few have gone. We'll see how it works out. So what I want to do is first set up the problem a little bit and talk about the sovereignty of you. Then I want to kind of talk about dehumanization. Then I want to talk about rehumanization. And then I want to introduce a concept to solve the problem that I'm going to set up. And the concept will be a concept about soulful spirituality. Yeah, you heard it here. We're going to talk about that. And then we're going to go to the end and talk about, hey, maybe there's a better way to go from please to thank you. Well, here's the problem. You know, story has it, a really senior plan giving officer, I mean, somebody who was around for 40 years, maybe even more, said, hey, you know, what am I going to say to this young person coming in? And young person comes in, college grad, I want to be the best development officer in history. Easy. Very easy. It's just one secret. You must be sincere. At all points, at all times, be sincere, even if you don't mean it. Now, the reality is, is we kind of say to ourselves, what do you mean if you don't mean it? Well, that's the problem. You see, please and thank you, we say it a lot, but does it really mean what we say it means? And are we really sincere? You see, that's the problem, is sincerity. And sincerity, we think about it kind of in a superficial way a lot of times. So what I'd like to do is take you on a little trip and talk about how things began, where we are, and where we should be going. So the first thing we got to figure out is this idea of please and thank you. So I'm not talking about all of the manners, just 2 words, please, thank you. But those 2 words are going to take us to places that hopefully maybe you haven't been in a long time. Because the first thing we got to notice about please and thank you is these were words that you got taught, probably the first words you really remember after mommy and daddy, right? And the theory was, and you may not remember this, but there was a time when you actually didn't know that you were you. Yeah, that's right. I have a grandson that's like, I think he's like 6, 7 months. And the truth is, when he looks in his mom's eyes, well, little Ezra, he doesn't know that Ezra really is Ezra. Oh, you can tell, because sometimes Ezra will kind of like burp or something or do some of the other things that go the other places, and it'll scare him. He'll jump and go, what happened? Where'd that come from? Because Ezra doesn't know he's a he yet. He doesn't know that he exists differentiated from mama. You say, Ray, well, when do kids learn that? And of course, the answer is, well, when they hit the terrible 2s. And how do you know it? Because every time you say something to them, they say, that's right. Because they realize at that point that there is a sovereignty of themselves that says, hey, I don't have to do what you say. There's something in me that has a volitional ability to exist apart from you. And that's so exciting for little 2-year-olds that they can't wait to say it every time you ask them something. Well, you see, that's a big deal. You see, what you then have to teach that little 2-year-old, that was us at some point, actually, you really are sovereign, but you didn't realize it. But actually, everybody who talks to you or helps you, those people actually, well, they're sovereign too. Hate to use the word sovereignty, but it's kind of a legal thing. Lawyers get that thing. And the idea is that there's a sovereignty of you. And I like to talk about it, and some of you will understand the reference here, to kind of like your own interior castle kind of a thing, right? And so the thing that happens is kids learn about that reality, and you have to say, look, Johnny, you need to use those magic words, please and thank you, because that's the only way you can really knock on the castle door and get those people to come out and give you what you need. See, it's not automatic, Johnny. And so you say those are the magic words, and interestingly, they kind of sort of are. And you say, okay, and then after you get the person who is this sovereign individual to actually give you favor, well, you say thank you, because in theory, saying thank you means you've really gotten the message that this was really favorable. I want to kind of suggest to you that the idea of sovereignty is almost like when we talk to a human being, you think about like going in to see Queen Elizabeth. I was in London once with my wife. I said, let's just go on by and see the Queen. And she goes, honey, no, we can't do that. I said, no, really, let's try. It's right there. I mean, we're close. I mean, we're never going to. And she said, no, Ray, are you crazy? But in my mind, I was thinking, well, maybe. But the point of it is that we have this formality, all of this, and yet each of us really is sovereign of our own little kingdom. And that's why we say please and thank you. And that's a big deal, and I'm going to make a bigger deal out of it as we go along. And so you say, okay, Ray, you beat that to death, but what's really the important thing? Well, the important thing is that when we solicitations they actually kind of dehumanize things a bit. I was just sitting over on my table there talking with Dan, and he said that, Ray, we're going through this sales thing where we actually talk about the name of the program in the book that someone wrote. It's called Integrity Sales. And of course, I said to Dan, well, Dan, you always had integrity. What do you need to take a course like that? But the point is, something about sales has this element that kind of, well, it's just less than optimal. And that's why I call it banging on to throne rooms, It's one thing to kind of knock on someone's door. Can you imagine being in the middle of something important and people walking in without asking? You know, you're sitting there and you're thinking, hey, this is really important. This is really something I need to be by myself. But people keep walking in, barging in, without asking, without knocking. After a while, you kind of wonder. Of course, what we used to call this is privacy. And I never really understood privacy. I was from a family of 10. Privacy, what are you talking about? Privacy? So the reality is I thought, what is this, right? Well, I get, right to privacy, the little things, but there's something bigger than that. And I think the bigger has to do with these solicitations. Well, I put these solicitations into 4 categories, if you'll just kind of go along with me on this. First of all, I got sophistication, manipulation, acculturation, all kind of Asians. But what's really going on here, first and foremost, is people solicit with tremendous sophistication, right? So now, when you make decisions on your computer, when you make decisions, even if you call someone, when you make decisions in the store, this machine intelligence finds what you've done, and it quickly records that. You didn't know they were recording it. You didn't ask them. They didn't ask you. They didn't say please, and they certainly didn't say thank you, but sometimes they'll ask for your email, but even if they don't, they're recording it. Oh, they are very sophisticated. Because what they're going to do is they're going to send you that catalog in the mail. They're going to send you those little pop-ups, and you'll never know where they came from. You might just think that that was a good idea that you came up with. But the reality is they're very sophisticated. But then there's proliferation. It's not that you just get it once. It's that you get it all the time. How many of you have gone into the store, you're just in a hurry, you run up to the cashier to get your loaf or bread or whatever it is, and you just get it, and all of a sudden the cashier looks up and says, would you like to give $3 to fill in the blanks? I was going to fill it in with St. Jude, but I didn't want to use anybody. But would you like to give to this organization? And you're like, actually, I just wanted bread. I really wasn't thinking about making a donation. It's just as if they just proliferate. And then, you say, well, but how bad is it? We don't have subliminal stuff, right? There's no subliminal advertising anymore. We outlawed that, right? Oh, they don't have to do subliminal. If you tell someone something 100 times in a certain period of time, they'll think it's real even if you don't say that in a subliminal way. And so now we find ways to say things so many times that it just sticks in places you didn't even know you had places. And then finally, when you think, well, after all, Ray, we got rid of people ringing the doorbells. I don't have to answer that doorbell every time someone comes over anymore. Yeah, we got the little sign out, no solicitation. Not hardly. Because the truth is, now your friends, your neighbors, they say, hey, I'm running like 20 miles. This is going to be hard for me. I do it every week, but it's going to be hard for me. And since I'm working so hard doing what I really enjoy, I want you to sponsor me on a per mile basis, would you? I mean, after all, we're friends, we're connected, and I'm working hard and you're doing nothing, so why don't you help me? Oh, you see, all of a sudden, you just get a little bit of solicitation fatigue. Oh, you say, but Ray, but estate planning is different. You're an estate planning guy. We're plan giving offices. We're far above this stuff. We don't do this grocery store solicitation stuff. Our people aren't fatigued. Oh, did I tell you? When you guys are doing what you do, what you're looking for folks to actually create a document, right? And so to create a document, to get a planned gift, you have to at least plan the document. And so when you're planning the document, you have to get the document. And so what do we use to motivate people to come in and plan this document? Oh, yes. We tell them, well, you should come in and do this document to avoid probate, to avoid intestacy, and to avoid taxes. That's like telling people, you can avoid the accident, you can avoid the traffic, you can avoid the gas lines. But I still haven't told you what? Where we're going, or why to go there. And it sounds obvious maybe to say it, but really, we're telling people what to avoid before we ever tell them where they're going. And we think, well, this is sales 101, right? At least for me. It's much more sophisticated now, but back in the day it said, the one thing you want to do when you're selling anything is raise concerns. Make people really nervous about something. Oh, okay. And so I think to myself, I don't know if we're really raising concerns. I think we're just raising avoidance issues. And you know what they do? They avoid. So the reality is, you say, but yep, Ray, we're more sophisticated than it. I know you are. You say, we come and we talk to people, and when we talk to them, we're talking about things that are deep. I mean, we're talking about important things. And so, well, I think that plan giving people who are talking about wealth transfer, we have to be willing to go deeper. Oh, and there's this word, the euphemistic words. Now, not making fun of it. The famous word we use is legacy. Now, here's my theory. You can throw it out. My theory about what legacy means, I walk up to somebody and say, hey, Freddie, we'd like to talk about your legacy. Translate it. Freddie, I'm hoping when you die that we can get some money from you, and we want to talk about how we're going to get that money. I'm just saying. Does legacy sound really lively to you? I mean, legacy to me doesn't sound like something you want me to do next week that we can have a nice time at the park. You know, the reality is, oh, and then there was the other word that used to, it was more in the religious circles. They'd say, well, we'd like to talk about stewardship. Again, the concept is we want your money, and we're fine to have it now or after you're dead. The point of it is that we use these euphemistic terms, but really we're talking about something that's so personal, so deep. I mean, we're not only knocking on the castle, we're barging in and going in right in where the treasures are. And we want to pull those puppies out. And yet we're just kind of going in as if nothing really matters. So you say, well, Ray, okay, let's say that I'm convinced that this is the case. Does it get any worse? Well, yeah, it actually does. Because you see, what they've done is they've actually gone and they've done a little studies, and Russell James, I'm going to talk about him in my next session too. They did a study and they go, look, plan giving people, just in case you didn't know, we've done a study. The study, and these are some scientists or psychologists, like, you know, people who actually went to school to learn these things, and we've done research. Secret, it's better not to talk about mortality. Why? Because people are terrified of dying. Terrified of dying. And they call it terror management theory. It's actually, you can look up terror management theory. And what it says is that when people find out they're going to die or someone wants to talk about death, they actually get on that river in Egypt. Many of you are familiar with that river, are you? Denial. Yeah, and they get on that river denying the fact that they're ever going to die. And what that comes, it looks like avoidance, it looks like all kinds of things. And here's what's so interesting about it. We'll never really figure out what caused the avoidance because we didn't know that they were all that terrorized. Because, of course, the effect is, oh, yeah, sure, yeah, I'll put that on my calendar. Can you call me back in a month to get together to talk about my legacy? Okay. Well, the reality is terror management. Now, I hope I can get a couple of you to go here with me because this is going to really exaggerate the point more than it needs to be exaggerated, but that's what speakers do. So let's look at it this way. If I know that talking about death will scare people, and I want to scare them in order to do something, I want to give them terror in order to make them do something, that would mean I'm using terror. That would make me a terror. Oh, you said it. I didn't say it. Don't anyone blame me. I didn't say it. Do you see? But my point is made, isn't it? Because what we're doing is we really are doing something that really is it feels kind of weird. We're using something that we now know people don't want to talk about, and we're going to talk about it to make them do something that we want them to do. Just doesn't sound quite right. And of course, mortality's bad, but there's something worse. This is amazing. We go in and mortality's bad, money's worse. Look at it. It's like the number one. They're more scared to talk about their money than they are talking about dying. Oh, by the way, some of you are saying, this guy talks about spirituality. I know what he's talking about. He's really talking about religion. I'm not, but that's okay. Notice that religion isn't the top two. You know, in politics, the reality is that we have to realize that what we're talking about and how we're talking about it is really important from the standpoint of recognizing where we're going and how we're going there. And if we don't, we can get ourselves into a lot of trouble. Well, you say, Ray, let's say that I buy this. And by the way, there is this whole problem that money, the real fear of money, isn't simply that they don't want to talk about it. They know something that I'm going to talk about in the next sessions. Money is a great amplifier. Love that. I have always said money is the great magnifier. Well, I'm going to tell you something. There's some stuff in my family there's some stuff in my life. I'm not sure I want to amplify it or magnify it. And if you don't believe me, just check it out. I mean, all of us have had wealthy clients, and you'll see them. I had a wealthy client. You like cars? They have 500. You like, it amplifies all those little things that come out. You're a little crotchety, you get a couple $100 million. Yeah, maybe you're a lot crotchety. I mean, the reality is it's a great amplifier, and they know that. And they know that there's a little bit of dysfunction here, a little bit of dysfunction there, and they don't want to magnify that. And so you say, well, Ray, let's say that I kind of buy that. Where are you going with this? I think the big key is we want to rehumanize. I kind of sort of made that word up. I didn't find it in a dictionary. We want to rehumanize. What we want to do is we want to go in and we want to actually have people who are just shell-shocked, people who don't know what's happened, people who are just had so many solicitations from so many people in so many places. They've just, wow. And then all of a sudden, you're going to come in, and whatever methods you're going to use, whatever thing you're going to say, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go. Oh, I love this. It sounds like a little Star Trek thing. Boldly go where no one else has gone to boldly get what others haven't even considered. Haven't even considered. And the reason is, I mean, think about it. If you boldly go there, you're going somewhere that other people don't go, so whatever you find is going to be something they didn't find because they weren't looking. That's my theory. And so you say, well, Ray, what is that? Oh, boy, here it comes. Soulful spirituality. Soulful spirituality. Now, right away, you're going to say, oh, my goodness, spirituality, here it comes. Well, I'm going to say it now, and I'll say it many times again. This is so big. Spirituality is really much bigger than religion. Yeah, it's bigger than religion. You need religion, but it's bigger. It's bigger. And I'm going to give you just a spoiler alert on something I'm going to say many times again, and that is this, that the reality is that some of the people that really are not so good at being human are religious people. And I'm going to quote a speaker, Dr. Benner, and he says that, and he's an expert on spirituality. He says, actually, there's some people. So, relax, soulful spirituality. But before we get there, we first have to go back and just revisit the fact that if you don't want to come with me, and I get that, I can appreciate that. I mean, I'm new here and everything. The reality is if you don't really kind of buy into it, let me give you some more reasons. And those reasons really have to do with the fact that, really, they might be thinking, because of what's happening, that people with the skills that I used to have aren't going to be really needed anymore. Why? How could that possibly happen? Well, I'll tell you. First, there's this idea of artificial intelligence. I was at this little AgTech conference. These lawyers that think they know estate plan. They get together in a group and talk about these things. They had a session on artificial intelligence where they had a person come in, and artificial intelligence now can predict the market in scary ways, really scary. And he pointed out that there's a group of people now that actually are expecting estate planners, oh, you may run into one of these someday, sometime, who say, well, look, I don't really need planned giving anymore. Oh, yeah, that legacy stuff, I'm not even worried about my legacy. You know why? Because I'm going to take all the data that I've got about me, I have figured it all out, and I have programmed it into this computer. Oh, yeah. In fact, I have hired a lawyer, and I've got $1 billion to make this true. This is all true. And I want to see if Northern Trust can handle a situation where I'm not alive, but I'm not dead. You see, because everything about me is loaded into this machine, and it can actually make the same decisions that I would make. Oh, no, I don't need a trust anymore. I don't need to talk about a private foundation. You see, I'll just make the decisions 25 years from now as to whether I give you something. So, planned giving officer, I don't need to plan anything. I'll be there. I'll be there after you're gone. Wow. Really, Ray? People are really talking like that. Yeah, I was in the room. It happened. So, that's that. That's a little wild. But the other thing that's happening is that you have this whole idea of technology as an aid to what people are doing. All of us know LegalZoom. It used to be you'd get a conversation with people about estate planning because it's something people don't normally do. Now they get a little pop-up, says talk to LegalZoom, hit a couple of buttons. Oh, yeah, I already did that. I don't need to talk. Oh, yeah, and it's a system. But here's the thing that really gets me. The thing I think that's most interesting about why people think that the things we do could be replaceable is one word: busyness. And it's funny. So now you go up to someone, you just walk up to them and you go, "So, how is it going? How's work?" "Oh, I'm busy." No, you missed me. I said, "So how are things at the house? How are your kids and everything?" "Oh, it's really busy." "Well, wait a minute, how's your summer going?" "How's summer going?" "Busy." "Retirement?" "Busy." You get the point? And notice how that word busy is supposed to be a qualitative term. It's supposed to be a value term. It's a term that's supposed to mean that you really understand what I'm talking about, and you somehow communicated to me a value. What I think's happening, if you just kind of pay, to me, this is my thought, is we're slowly kind of, in a real sense, kind of dehumanizing ourselves, and we don't really know it. My expression, you probably heard me say it before, one of the busiest things you could put on this stage is a rocking chair. It's busy, right? It's busy, but is it really doing anything that anybody wants to do except somebody wants to sit in it? And that's not much, right? Rocking chairs are busy. What does that mean? Well, the point of it is busyness helps us to be distracted. I put up there that, there's this book out called Integrity Sales that a lot of people have been reading. And it's interesting that someone will write a book and sell it and say that, sales and integrity have a little, disconnect. Really? And, I've got this idea of, emails now. I thought the funny thing about texting is when we text, we've actually got it down to where you need a little, you put a little, what do they call it, emojis? Am I getting that name right? And you put it there to show the emotion that you need. Because what we've done is we've dehumanized communication so much that we realize, oh, shoot, we don't have any way to actually say how we really feel since we're not really communicating with feelings and we're not present. So we better put a symbol in it that says something about our feelings. One of the things, if you ever get a letter from me or an email, and some people do, and sorry about that, but the reality is I have to put a little footer in there because I still start all my emails out. There are people here that know this to be true, with "Dear." You say, "That's stupid." Well, I have to put down the bomb. I know I'm being stupid, but I'm just doing this anyway. What I'm trying to say is, when I start blurting things out with that quick email, what I put that "dear" in, because when I type "dear," it makes me go, wait a minute. I'm getting ready to ask the king, the queen, if they would consider a request by me. And I want to recognize that I understand that you are a human being entitled to the highest and most kind of, deference. Well, you say, Ray, this is making sense, but really, where are we going with this? This statement is so good that even though they told me not to do it, I'm coming down because I want to read this like I'm sitting with you, because it's just so cool. And so I'm just going to, because rule number one when you speak is never to read something. So we're gonna read it. What can I tell you? But I'll sit down so I'm just like you. Here we go. There is no such thing as an ordinary person. There are no ordinary people. You have never talked to a mere mortal. Nations, cultures, arts, civilizations, these are mortal, and their life is to ours as the life of a gnat. But it is immortals whom we joke with, work with, marry, snub, and exploit. Immortal horrors or everlasting splendors. It is a serious thing to live in a society of possible small g gods and goddesses, to remember that the dullest and most uninteresting person you talk to may one day be a creature which, if you saw it now, you would be strongly tempted to worship, or else a horror and a corruption such as you now meet, if at all, only in a nightmare. All day long, we are in some degree helping each other to one or the other of these destinations. It is in the light of these overwhelming possibilities and with the awe and circumspection proper to them that we should conduct all our dealings with one another. Wow. Wow. It's amazing. And you sort of kind of knew that. You sort of kind of knew that there's something really special about people. Oh, yeah. You knew that about yourself. You knew that about others. But, boy, he puts it in such key words. Wow. So you say, well, so what does that mean? My thing is, Oh, by the way, I know there's some people here who say, well, I'm really agnostic about this stuff like that. And I always tell people who are agnostic, the bottom line of it is, everybody I know acts like they're going to be around forever, even if they don't really say that they believe it. Are you with me? We make decisions with some kind of perspective that actually shows the reality of what we are. So the point of it is, now that I've kind of read it, is that we are an essence that's behind. See, the please and thank you, I think the reason why we teach people to say it is because what we're saying is people are a huge deal. To be a human being is huge. We're never ceasing embodied spiritual beings. And that's a big deal. So I want to quickly, now is that clock right? Because I was supposed to set my watch. So somebody who's in charge of something, shake your head or, okay, good. All right, because I usually have my little timer, then I forgot to hit it. So the reality is that I need to tell you about how I kind of think about how we are. So let's quickly go to this concept of never ceasing spiritual beings. Oh boy, really, right? So the thing is that I'll tell you what's really key about you, and this is interesting, because right now everybody's into the brain thing, right? Because now we have new scans, and everybody says, the limbic system. By the way, that's all good stuff. But what we think is, what really makes us human, and we used to think this a lot, is your IQ. And of course, now we're evolving from that. We really know, as a speaker will later talk about, it's really EQ. You know what I'm talking to you about today? Yeah, SQ. Yeah, soul quotient, spirit soul. You go SSQ. And so the reality is, what is that? And I think, as one authority that was in Harvard, and then what later went to be with developmentally disabled adults said, he said, they're developmentally disabled mentally, but what made them so much more rich as human beings than other people with more intellectual capabilities was their heart. What is it about people's heart? Let me tell you what it is. It's what you want. When people get married, they say, well, give me your heart. Give me your spirit. Give me what? Let me give you the three divisions of this. See, what you are, when you get down to the core of who you are, if you really, really want to know who you are your deepest, strongest desire. Oh, I know, that doesn't sound so smart. It doesn't sound so good, because desire sounds like, what we did when we got a cup of coffee this morning. No, we have lots of desires, and those are good. But think about it. If you didn't have desire, literally, you couldn't get out of bed. Really. Desire is really important. But the point of it is, that's who you are. Now, let's look at what that means. There's three components to it. Heart is the centrality of desire. The centrality of desire, the fact that that's a core thing. It is, give me your heart, give me the core, give me the primary thing that makes you who you are. And then there's, of course, the idea of will. Will is the activity of desire. So it's like your heart beating. Your heart beating, your will says yes, no, yes, no. The will is kind of like, to use an example I have no experience with, it's kind of like a Kegel muscle, right? You think that little tiny muscle pushes that, 9-pound, you look at them, it's not much, but it's all the other stuff that's going on around that muscle, that little muscle that pushes that, 8-pound child out. So the reality is, will's kind of like that. It's not really that strong. It just gets moved, but it is what moves. And then finally, there's the spirit. And spirit's easy. Think of spirit as kind of like esprit de corps. The spirit is the passion of desire, the power of desire, the actual ability, the amount of force in your desire. And you watch people, you watch people playing, you go, wow, that girl is playing with some real heart out there on that soccer field. I'm not sure about her talent, but she's got some really good heart. Oh, and you'll see a team and you go, wow, that team just will themselves win, the spirit of that team. And so spirit becomes that. And so you say, okay, good, I got that right. So then you say, okay, body, soul. And I really like this because I just thought it'd be great to be able to talk after all this time, having to grown up a little bit as the back end of the child of the 60s. Here I am talking about soul. And it really does. The word actually makes sense from it. Like soul music and soul food, it was earthy. It was connected. See, our soul is the biggest thing about us. If you talk about, still today on airlines, they talk about how many souls are on board. It's like they're saying, no, it's bigger than your body. It's bigger than just your mind. It's like the big, big, big thing. It includes your relationships and everything. Your soul is all stuff. And one of the things about a soul that's cool, your soul expands. That's why we look at people and we'll say, oh, he's a real old soul. What we mean is he's got so much wisdom and experience inside that soul, okay? So the thing about a soul is it is what connects us to reality, okay? That's number one. Number two, it's our operating system. I kind of like this one. It's our operating system. So like an operating system, if you think about a computer with having an operating system, the thing is, when the apps are running, as long as those apps are running smoothly, do you ever notice the operating system? No, I don't even know what operating system I have on some of my stuff. One says, well, sir, have you checked your operating system? Did you oh, that's right. You're supposed to patch the operating systems. Sometimes you get these little patches that somebody who created your operating system is saying, put this on or else your app will have a problem. Well, I never do because I didn't even know there was an operating system. I'm just like, but the soul's kind of like that. And what I've been trying to say is, we've been getting some communications that we need a patch, and we're going to talk a little bit later about how you can do that patch, and we have a speaker who will really give you some detail on how you can patch, talking about some of the things that you need to do, meditation, that kind of. But the big thing is that things happen that actually hurt that system, and we don't patch it. Your soul as an operating system. So the big thing is, you say, okay, Ray, I got that. That makes sense to me. And it makes sense that it's big. And your soul is what keeps you connected to reality. And we're going to do that. We'll talk about that a little bit later in a big way. But the next thing I want to say, yes, you have your heart, your emotions, your will. But remember, your thoughts create your emotions, create your actions. And everybody aims for the shortcut. Oh, let's just go for the thought. Let's just try to plant the thought. Oh, forget what it does to the rest of it. Just try to stay right on the surface. If we can just get that to move, let's not really go very deep. And that doesn't work all that well, if you ask me. So you say, well, Ray, I'm still not convinced about this spirituality thing. So let me go to my Dr. Benner here and just quote him a little bit, because he really has got some good stuff. Well, the first thing is, I love this. He says, most people will say, I am a human being on a spiritual journey. This is why I believe spirituality is big. Because what Benner would say, and what I believe is true now, he'd say, no. What's really true, I am a spiritual being on a human journey. Oh, I love that. I'll tell you why. Because what it does is it makes being a human being the best thing that you can ever be. Now, some of you that kind of says, I don't know, I'm not so buying that. Well, let's say this. Let's say that you, what's your favorite thing? It's your computer. And your computer does talk to you, but let's just go ahead. Your computer can talk to you. And you create your computer, and then you have your computer, and your computer talks to you. And so you look at your computer and say, hey, computer, how you doing? And the computer says, hey, I'm not really sure because, I just feel like I really haven't done what I was supposed to do. And you say, computer, have you computed? Have you done? He said, yeah, but I never learned how to swim. Yeah, but you're not supposed to swim. But I never learned how to dance. No, but you weren't supposed to dance. Right? But all I ever was a computer. And I would say back to him, but that's what you're supposed to be. And the computer would say, yeah, you're right. I'm happy. I did what I was supposed to do. And you're happy with me? Yeah, I'm great with you. So the reality is, being a human being, when you are the best person that you can be, you don't become a guru. You're not a saint. You are a fully human being. And you're saying, oh, Ray, you beat that to death. What's the big deal? Because we get to help anybody and everybody that's human to be more fully human. And now we've got something to talk about that allows us to really help anybody and everybody. Because either we're helping them become more human, rehumanizing, or we're helping them become less human. We're dehumanizing. And you all know what I'm talking about. You get it? Because the most dehumanizing thing you can do to someone is take their what? Take their life. But here's the problem, is there's stuff that takes a little bit of your life. Just a little bit. Like the person who just barges into your throne room and just tells you that's the way you're supposed to be. No, it's not so much. And so what he says is, and some people say, oh, I know, he's just gone off. He's talking about religion. No. The one guy says, the theologian says, no. Actually, it's not about religion. It's about whether you can sleep at night. He says, no, this is your operating system. This is about whether your apps are closing down. This isn't about what you do. I mean, that's, in fact, another quote says, you know what? What's happened is spirituality is so deep, people get it confused with ethnicity, with religion, with culture. They actually think that's who they are. That's just where they exist. You can switch cultures. You can switch. You can change your identification of ethnicity and be different. But the reality is, who you are spiritually is just a big deal. I have so much, but I got to rush ahead. The reality is that when it comes to this, a good example, and this is not going to be perfect, but it's just to give you something that you can take away that says, maybe this guy's onto something. So spirituality really comes down to this. To show you how big it is. Dr. Benner says this, that there's some people in their deepest part of their life, what they want to do is make music. They want to make music, they want to hear music, they want to see. Music is it just permeates everything that they are. I mean, I'm not one of those people. When they're into music, even when you run, you go, boy, I'm not quite that serious about that. But the reality is, you notice that they have, and what Bennett would say is that's their spirituality. Now you get the point. Because you can have a spirituality in music, you can use that with religious, you can use that with pop music, you can use it in 1,000 ways. You may never even use it in a way that anyone ever sees, but that's your spirituality. And that's the depth that we're talking about. Make sense? So you say, okay, well, I kind of get that, Ray. So where do we go from here? Well, what I'm trying to say is we have to connect there. We have to be willing to connect with people and go and try to get there. And how do we do it? We do it through story. But I want to give you an analogy that kind of brings this a little bit together. The story is like a kite. And remember I talked about the soul as your groundedness? Well, this is where, Dr. Benner says this. This is what I really like. And you can read it here. The best thing that a person can be is a fully human being. Just so you don't think I made that up. And that is the driving force behind the force of each individual. Everything that helps others be more human is good and virtuous and should be encouraged and applauded. So, of course, at this point, you all probably saying, well, I'm one of those people who should be applauded. Because that's one, isn't this delicious? Oh, this is the best part. I saw a slide by another speaker, and so excuse me for stealing your slide. But think about this. I knew this before the slide. What does the word philanthropy mean? Yeah. Phileo, Greek, love. Anthropos, humankind. Philanthropy is the love of humankind. So if there's anybody who's ever been in the business of helping people be fully human, that would be you. That would be you. Because that's really what it's saying. We so love the concept, the ideal, the amazing fact of being a human that we want to help people be more human. Because when you're fully human, that's the best you can be. Sometimes you hear people say, she's just a good human being. And they don't say she's just a human being. But they have to put good with it because, the theory is that there's bad human beings. I suppose there's some truth to that. Everything that takes away from being deeply and profoundly human should be avoided. Well said. Well said, and that's what your organization does. So let me give you this kite analogy because I think it's cool. The kite thing says this. Our soul keeps us grounded. Remember we talked about big soul, small. Our soul has all our pain. And the soul is in touch with reality. And someone who's not in touch with reality that has spirit, no, it's not going to work. You've got to be in touch with reality, else you're going to have some illness issues. And then, what can we use for your spirit? Your spirit's like the kite. It soars. Your spirit, that's why I used to always get so angry. Because you get these people that make $1 billion. I'm like, go home, stop working, let me make some money. I was like, what are you doing out there? But of course, they keep working because the reason they were working had to do with their humanness. Not really so much they were trying to get money. Money's just a byproduct of doing their human thing, hopefully. So the reality is they're going to do that. But the truth is, our experiences, all of them, are stored. We get to that storage through story. But it's in our soul. And you can tell people who are soulful. That's what I kind of loved about when it talked about soul is because people say, you just seem so. What they would say is you just seem so in touch with things I'm not in touch with. They're real because you're in touch with. But the reality is soul is like, but the spirit soars. You people, when they finish getting that $1 billion, they're still soaring. They still want more because our spirits, because we're spiritual beings, we just are always thinking of the next thing, the next desire. Our desires are so deep and they can only be, fulfilled. We just keep moving up. That's our spirit. That's the kite. And the string that holds the kite to the soul, why, that's life. And life is tense. You got to have a little tension in your life. If you don't have any tension, you know what happens? That kite just falls right to the ground. And of course, when you got the kite, you got the counter string, you got the soul, what you want to do is you want to create some force, and you kind of move through, through the obstacles of the things around you. And as you're moving through the obstacles, you create lift, and then the wind comes and you soar. That's the picture. To me, that's exactly what happened. Oh, I love this. Without the passions of our experience, life is a what? Near-death experience. You need your spirit. But without the soul, it's just kind of dysfunctional, right? So you say, Ray, I got this, but it seems like you're beating us to death, and I know you're running out of time. So where are you going to go with this? What's the real issue? I love this quote. I spent the whole time to get to this quote. Here it is. You don't have to read it so much, so I'm going to tell it to you. So we go over to the guy's house, one of our prospects, and we finish up a good planning meeting, and we all go out, and outside of his house is a huge street light. And so we go out, and all of a sudden he comes out to the street light, and he's looking for something. And we get out of our cars and say, what are you looking for, Fred? And he says, I'm looking for my keys. Then the neighbors come out. They're helping him look for his keys. And we're all looking for his keys underneath the spotlight. And finally somebody says, Fred, why? Are you sure that you lost your keys here? Outside somewhere here? He goes, oh, no. I didn't lose my keys outside. I lost them in the house. Yeah, at that point, people are going, Fred, you lost them in the house. Why are we out here? He goes, well, I'm looking for them out here because the light is so much better. You see what that's saying? It's saying that a lot of our activity, we do it because it's easier, because everybody's doing it, because, well, the light's better. Ray loves to talk about taxes. Give him some CLTs and CRTs. He just loves that stuff. Meantime, I've told you all the story before. A woman with $100 million, I spent 5 years trying to talk her into all these estate planning things, and all she ever wanted to do was to really talk about some soul issues about how money wasn't working the way she did. So finally, since she died on a day that they had repealed estate taxes, I had to realize that maybe my conversation wasn't optimal. Okay, so I kind of redid it. What we have to do, and I like this analogy, because it says, the reason why he didn't go back inside, because it was a little harder. Even though that's the only way he could win. And what it says is, what most people don't want to do, this is big, most people really don't want to look inside. Yeah, that's the big thing going on now. People said, don't take my word for it, go out there. Within a day or two, you'll hear someone talk about the need for meditation. Because people are so busy, we're so superficial, we're so surface, that hey, trust me, opioid epidemic, check it out. Check it out. Oh, by the way, on my next group, I'm going to talk about PERMA index. They can actually measure happiness. We haven't had an increase in happiness in America since the 1950s. I'm just saying, go look at the stats yourself. The reality is, you got to go inside. And that's what you can help your clients do. But first, in order to help your clients go inside, guess what you have to do? Yeah. I saw a couple now. Yeah, you got to go inside. You got to go figure out what you're about. Because when you figure out what you're about, and you figure out how you're flying your kite, and you can handle the tension, and you can make that thing soar, then you can go teach someone else how to make it soar. And so here's what happens. What you're going to do is, you're actually going to, first and foremost, you're going to kind of look for your soul and spirit. Here's the interesting thing about that. Think about it. My wife just sent me a picture yesterday of an Oriole that was in our backyard. Now, some of you get Orioles all the time. It's not a big deal. But for me, Orioles are so cool because we got this green stuff and this orange. And so it's like if you want to see that Oriole, you'd have to sit there quietly, not move, and wait. And wait. And you have to be so observant. That is what you have to do with you. You have to be silent, you have to be alone, and you have to listen for you. And I don't know when you will show up, but trust me, ultimately, you will show up. Ultimately, that interior castle, to borrow a phrase from a famous person, that interior castle will open to you, and you can walk in and go, oh yeah, I remember that. That was when I was 12. And oh yeah, I really do want to do that. Yeah, that was a wonderful thing. That was horrible. Got to remember to stay away from that. But we got to do it. And one of the things that I've kind of said, and I got to hurry along, is that not only do you want to do that, but you want to learn how to be in awe. One of the things I've tried to kind of emulate for you, and excuse me for the over effect of it all, but I want you to be in awe of people. Because think about it. If I look at you and I really think, wow, human beings, never ceasing spiritual beings on a journey, a destination that will make some of them so amazing that if I could see it now, I'd be tempted to worship them. Wow. And I'm talking with them? Awe. And to start to be in awe of people, don't start big. Maybe you just need to start with a rock or a leaf or a river. Start with the simple things. Because if you can be in awe of nature, then it's easier to be in awe of people. And then, of course, that creates curiosity. That creates that transformational space to be present with someone, to draw them into your story so that you can help them with theirs. And then here's the thing, and I got a little bit more time so I can talk about it. One of the things that I want to talk about is how you can actually grow in your spirit. And I just found this out myself a while ago. There's some people in this room randomly. There's someone in here who knows this really well, and they're going to say, oh, Ray, I know a lot better than you do. But this thing that I discovered, not Myers-Briggs, you should use that. You should know whether you're introvert. But there's all these tests that tell you what you are. And usually when you get the test, you go, oh, good. That means I got this, you don't, ha, ha. Aren't I cool? I'm a disc, I'm an I or an S or something, or a color, or they have animal names, whatever. But the Enneagram, it's on the thing there, starts with an E, but it's said like any and gram, 9. It has 9 different personality types. And here's what's so cool about those personality types is if you do it right, it's a spiritual exercise. Yes, you heard spiritual. And by the way, if you go on, don't go on the internet because there's just so many sites, but the Institute of Enneagrams, I actually think Richard Rohr and Ian Morgan have the best stuff on it, but you can talk to me about it. But what you do is you find out who you are by finding out how your gift went bad. You actually figure out who you are by the way that you act most kind of sort of inhuman. We have, you can use the word evil, sin, messed up, dysfunction. And you kind of take that on. And you go, yeah, that would be me. And when you find, here's how you know you've got the right spot for yourself in the Enneagram, is you go, like right now, I wouldn't dare tell you what I am on the Enneagram. I know what my number is. I wouldn't dare tell you. Because if I told you my number, you would know my deep, secret, I don't want to tell anybody, character flaw. But that character flaw is connected to my best gift. And actually, the reason why it's a flaw is because I'm so gifted that I use the gift as if it were ultimate instead of a means. I use the gift to manipulate people. And manipulation is dehumanizing, which makes it evil, which means that that's what my thing is. And so what's the point, Ray? The point is that with the Enneagram, it helps us to improve our spirituality. It helps us to fly the kite better. It actually puts you on a journey that helps other people go on a journey. And that's my whole point. Do whatever you need to do, but for goodness sake, go enough, know yourself well enough where you can create space for others. And then through that space, take them where they need to go. And so you say, okay, Ray, you beat that to death. Now, how do you get from please to thank you? Well, I think it's really a matter of understanding where you started. Start with the whole idea that you are approaching this person in awe, and you're so curious. You're so curious. Not because you want to just break into their interior castle and look at all the treasure, but because you honestly, truly believe that, oh, this is the key, that I will be changed by my encounter with them. I have to really, honestly, truly believe that being here today means that I'm going to change just ever so much. That I'm going to be changed by the fact that I talked to you, that we saw each other, that we were in the room together, that we were trying to do something good together. I got to believe that that's possible, so that when I show up, I'm not trying to sell you on anything. I'm trying to just be. Oh, I love this concept. That people really, ultimately, it's about belonging. Everybody wants to belong. But I never broke the words down. Here's the breakdown. Belonging. Being. Learn how to be. Learn how to actually be a human being. Oh, Ray, here's how I would translate it. I am a human doing. A human doing. And that's why we say, and that's why we keep replying with people saying, so what are you doing? Oh, I'm busy. I'm a human doing. I'm doing. You doing? I'm doing. But somebody says, no. I want to be a human being. First, I understand the being, this kind of core thing. And then, here's the second part. I understand longing. Isn't that interesting? Belonging has the word longing in it. The longing is this core thing. It's your heart. Oh, I saw. So I took my grandkids to see Aladdin, right, to see it again. Of course, I had seen it, and I'm just going to tell you straight out. Yes, at the cartoon Beauty and the Beast, I cried like a baby. The Beast, he was so cool. He just started, I thought, this is a cartoon. But here's the point, and to this point, the issue is this. See, story is so powerful. It's so powerful. People say, well, that's not real. Actually, story is more real than your finger. Because it touches, story gets to that part of you that's the soul, the spiritual part. And that's why it resonates. And Disney keeps figuring out, that's why it keeps working. Thank you. And that's why it keeps working. It just keeps working. And so what happens in Aladdin, just to show you how this is relevant, in Aladdin, this is a spoiler alert, but I trust you all know the story. So what happens is the little street rat meets the princess on the street. And she falls kind of in love with the reality of his life because it's so what? Yes, authentic, genuine, so soulful. He has such soulful spirituality. Now, it's street rat spirituality, but it's soulful spirituality. And she says, boy, that's good. And so she goes back to the thing and says, I really wish that I could be in touch like my planned giving expert is in touch with their life. Oh, did I switch metaphors? I wish I could really be that way. Obviously, not street rat. But, I wish I could be in touch with that. But what happens? Oh, he goes back to the office and they tell him, look, if you really want to be connected, you need to be like that guy with $1 billion. Try to make your organization look like that organization. Try to act like you do what he does or she does. Don't go in there looking like you really are. So Aladdin dresses all up, rubs the thing, and gets a different persona. He goes back, and of course, she doesn't want to have anything to do with him because the persona is not what she wants. Think about it. If somebody said that they loved you and they said they wanted your heart, and what you did is you gave them the pretend thing, then what they would have is not you. You see, you can't actually be connected with someone as you unless you know who you are. And so, of course, Aladdin, what happens is he goes back, realizes I need to go back and be who I was. Now, I got to stop doing some of that dehumanizing stuff of stealing, but actually, the good stuff was good. I need to increase that. So, what happens? Aladdin realizes, and they sing, and I just can hear it going in my mind, it's a whole new world. A whole new world. And so that's what I invite you to, and I really am thankful for your time this morning. Thank you.